initial announcements, and then we are invite Amy Williams to come forward. We are celebrating 100 years of ministry this year. We were founded in 1925, and Amy Williams is going to give us, we've been going through decade by decade, and she's going to tell us about, what, the 80s? All right.
Good morning. So the 80s. Jimmy Carter finished his term as president in 1981. Ronald Reagan was the president from 81 to 89. Then we elected George H.W. Bush. Jerry Brown was governor of California until 1983. Then George Dumajian, a Long Beach resident and neighbor, finished the decade. Mayors were Eunice Sato, Thomas Clark, Ernie Kell. Ernie Kell was the first mayor elected in a citywide contest. Prior to that, the mayor was elected by the city council. The world. The Iran hostage crisis started under Carter, ended with Reagan. AIDS became a worldwide crisis during the 80s. Compact discs replaced records. May of 1980, smallpox was eradicated. Prince Charles and Princess Diana had their wedding. MTV debuted on the TV. Sandra Day O'Connor became the first woman justice on the Supreme Court. E.T. the movie was released. Microsoft Windows replaced MS-DOS. Challenger explosion in 1986. 1989, work began on the World Wide Web. The Berlin Wall came down in 1989. Music was Springsteen, Devo, and Duran Duran, and The Simpsons debuted in 1989. Within Long Beach, the population grew by 18.8%. The Long Beach Marathon was launched in 1982. One of the members of Bayshore Church, Jim Gardner, was part of the marathon effort. In 85, the port expanded and launched a 35-year plan to double the size of the port. The Belmont Athletic Club, formerly the Belmont Movie Theater, opened in 1980. Coming to Bayshore in the 1980s, Ken Coates was our minister in 1980. He married my parents, and he baptized me in 1983. There were 2 social clubs that provided leadership to our community. The Mr. and Mrs. Club were primarily grandparents. My grandparents were a part of that club. They were also, from the Mr. and Mrs. Club, they were also primary members on the Board of Stewards, as they had been the members who had helped the previous minister, Milton Gabrielson, during this tenure. The Young Couples Club were young married couples with children in junior high, elementary, and preschool. This group volunteered in the nursery, 2 couples each week, sold donuts, 30 cents each, made Easter breakfast prior to the first service at 9 a.m., then hid Easter eggs so the children could have an Easter egg hunt. I do remember this, along with my sister, and maintained Sky Forest. For a few years, they also sponsored a fireworks stand and a rummage sale to help contribute to the church budget. Sunday school was taught by high school students for the younger ages and couples club members for older students. Our membership at the time was near 400. Ken Coates was our minister, retired in July of '86. He moved to Pilgrim Pines, a UCC retirement community in Claremont, where later he passed in 2011. Under his influence, we continued to reach out into the community. In 1985, we adopted a refugee family from Iran who were fleeing from the Ayatollah Khomeini, and Bayshore became the destination of choice for weddings. We often had 40 or more weddings per year, sometimes 2 on one day. The Mr. and Mrs. Club often prepared refreshments for weddings, receptions. At that time, we did not have a dishwasher in the kitchen except for Fred Fleek. And I can say I knew Freddie and Vera very well. They were close family friends of my grandparents, and their daughter and son-in-law were close friends of my parents, and they were married in Bayshore in 1948 and were active members. Fred became the official dishwasher. When the kitchen was remodeled and a dishwasher installed, it was named the Freddie 2. In the fall of 1986, we called a new minister, Charles Ensley, or Charlie. Charlie Peggy, daughters Amy and Emily, arrived over Christmas break in 1986. Charlie had grown up in Long Beach and had a family nearby. He soon developed a rapport with the children in our church. The children worshiped in the sanctuary once a month. Children's music performances were done in the fellowship hall. In 1987, the musical 3 We Kings was presented on a Sunday in the sanctuary. It was a hit. After that, the children sat with their family in church, then joined Charlie on the steps before going to Sunday school. And he always, some of us, I can remember, he brought a brown bag, so we can attest to this, and it had different things in it when you came up for children's time. In July of '87, Charlie volunteered to be a cabin counselor at Pilgrim Pines. Many of our youth attended that first year, and it became a tradition for many years. When I attended one year, I had Peggy as my counselor. In 1987, we hired Reverend Paul Lance as our associate minister. He was a youth leader as well as a biblical scholar. He led Bible studies for adults, wrote music, and planned events for the youth. We continue with the Christmas Family Program. On Saturday, December 16, 1989, many church members arrived early to begin sorting and packing for the Christmas family deliveries scheduled for that afternoon. Instead, they were greeted by fire trucks and smoke pouring from the sanctuary roof. This was prior to cell phones. Some went to neighbors to make calls to other church members. It was deemed safe for us to enter the fellowship hall before noon, and work was immediately begun to sort and deliver the Christmas presents and food that had been collected. By 5 p.m. that evening, the fellowship hall was clean, chairs had been set up for Sunday worship, some Bibles and hymnals had been rescued from the sanctuary and were dispersed around the room. We added a third Christmas service that year because the fellowship hall could not accommodate the crowds. We worshiped in the fellowship hall for more than 5 months. Next month, or towards the end of the month, we will meet the 90s.
Thank you, Amy. And of course, Springsteen was still going in the 90s and the 2000s, 2010s, and still today.